The Stratford Square Mall originally opened on March 9th, 1981, and after 43 years of operation, it closed for good on April 21st, 2024. This footage here was filmed on the last day of the mall's operation, around 2 o'clock, so it was in its final 4 hours. There were a lot of people here just walking around, taking pictures, and just trying to reflect on memories that they had with the mall. I also visited the mall on April 14th, so exactly a week before closure, and took a lot more footage from that day. And I'm just gonna kind of flip between the two dates, and you'll just see a little note whenever I do change. There was not a single store operating in the mall on the last day. Kohl's, the mall's only anchor, had their doors shut down. So the mall was basically just sitting empty. Kohl's has had their mall entrance shut down since January, mostly because there's been no heat. A week before, on April 14th, there was Anna's Kitchen, which was still open in the food court. They were literally the only tenant. And then they closed after the 14th, leaving them all open but with no tenants for literally a week. Walking around here was like exploring an abandoned building, but you're surrounded by a bunch of people literally doing the same thing, just taking pictures and reminiscing over this place. It is a beautiful mall, and it is so stark to see it this empty like this. This is Bull and Bear Axe Throwing. They had just closed the day before this was filmed on the 14th. Here they are on the last day with their sign down, and they added this lovely sign reminding people they don't want people to take pictures inside. Ha! I got your sign. And that's just referring to the axe throwing place. Everyone in the mall was basically just taking pictures. Besides that, it's literally public property. Earlier this year, back in January, the mall was purchased by the village of Bloomingdale. In this video, I'm going to delve deep into the mall's recent history, but I highly recommend going back and watching my video that I made in 2020 if you want to get a full sense of this place's history since then. There's a card on the screen now. Previously, this mall was owned by the Namdar Realty Group, one of the two big horsemen of dead mall ownership. There's Namdar Realty Group and Kohan Realty Group. Both are based in Great Neck, New York, not that far from each other, and together they own about 100 dying or dead shopping malls all around the country. This is their thing. See, there's some water damage in this storefront. When an owner of a mall is like, okay, I want to exit this, either through a foreclosure, bankruptcy, or they're just like, we're done, this place is screwed. They'll be like, hey, Namdar, Kohan, do you want to buy our mall? Write us a check, take it off of our hands. They'll do it, and they basically manage their decline. They try to, cut costs as much as possible, whatever necessary maintenance. Sometimes they try to sneak away with not paying taxes. Kohan especially does that. Not so much Namdar. In some malls, they keep rents the same. It just depends. Namdar is starting to branch out. They're making a bunch of random private equity investments, all sorts of things. While Kohan's going full steam with dead malls. Basically now, they've earned a national reputation where communities all around the country are like, okay, these two bought our malls, crap, because they're not going to be a good neighbor normally. This mall was purchased back in 2013 by a local Chicagoland-based investment firm called Street Mac, who bought the mall hoping to reposition it and make it more upscale. And then JCPenney closed in 2014, kind of setting back those plans. They basically, the mall was doing okay, but it was filled up with a lot of name brand, off-brand stores, and it wasn't getting the trendy stores at the time, like H&M, Forever 21. It was kind of clearly languishing. So in their mindset, make a few improvements, slowly upgrade it, the mall's going to be in a better place. That did not happen though. And instead, the mall just kept losing anchors and stores. For stores looking to make cuts, Stratford was kind of a convenient location because it was surrounded by a ton of other stores with basically other retail complexes in all directions. Plus, this mall is far off of a major highway. It's a local mall in a regional mall's husk. Street Mac announced several interesting looking redevelopment plans, but none of them were able to come to fruition. The biggest thing they did was chop off the Macy's wing, leaving this stub of mall basically connecting to the JCPenney wing. There is no mall entrance, no foot traffic through this wing normally. Other than today, when there's a ton of people looking at the closed play area. They had just ripped this out the week before. But it basically created this dead stub wing of the mall. Here's the Coca-Cola studio. So exciting. A Coca-Cola studio, man. I mean, that's crazy. It was just basically an area where there was vending machines and couches and that's it. But it's the Coca-Cola studio, guys. Woodman's would open in 2021, but the mall just continued to decline. Woodman's was successful, but when you approach the road from Gary Avenue, the main road to the west of the mall, you literally can't even see the mall. It's like they were trying to hide it. It was kind of sure, Woodman's is great, but what they didn't really help the mall at all. They just made it feel even more disjointed and dead.
Where is your family? Make an emergency plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and ReadyCheck, whatever the heck that means.
And the escalators were still running here. They still work. I'm surprised, actually. This was Kidstown 2 in an old Disney store. There's the kids' play area, and I did still see people using it. And the week before closure, it looked like they were maintaining it and still keeping it clean. Unfortunately, I was too tall to go in, so I was also just pointing at a bird, which you can't see in the footage, but it was there. Also ran into my middle school choir teacher over here. It was kind of weird, a little awkward. So now it's time for the most fun part of the video, where I talk about tax financing deals. So back in 2015, Street Mac negotiated with the village of Bloomingdale to create a new 1% sales tax over the Stratford Square area, and then they would use that to help fund improvements and renovations to the mall. Over time, there was a cap of $20 million or a certain time frame of years. They ended up negotiating that up to $35 million with the hope that they could try to help recoup more of that loss. Then the anchors started dropping off. You first had JCPenney, Macy's, Carson's, Burlington downsized to 1 floor, Sears, movie theater. I mean, that closed after Street Mac sold it. But the writing was on the wall. The mall was dying. It was not generating as much revenue as it was. So they were like, okay, let's sell it to Namdar. And this was after the Woodman's deal was announced. Namdar bought it and was like, hey, that deal, that sounds pretty good. We'd like that. Bloomingdale was like, okay, no, we have no reason to give that deal to you. You don't have any serious efforts to improve the mall. It's dying. Namdar then made a bunch of claims about how they were planning to redevelop the mall. And one of my favorite statements from this article was they were not afraid to take down anchors. I personally looked through their portfolio. I didn't really see any evidence of them taking down anchors. They were basically like telling the village that like they would be a good player, like give us this tax break. You know, we're developing the Woodman's thing, but that was negotiated under the old owner. Bloomingdale refused, and then Namdar sued. Taking a look inside the former Carson's store. Carson's was a huge loss for this mall and many other Chicagoland area malls. They did pretty well in Chicagoland until their parent company went bankrupt. This is the former Round 1. This was one of their first locations in the entire United States. They were thinking, hey, let's go to a slightly struggling shopping mall, get a better deal on the rent, establish ourselves until we keep going. That strategy didn't necessarily work because it didn't last very long. The space, though, looks great inside, and I really wish that I got to go here before they closed. In Namdar's lawsuit asking for the 1% sales tax back, they argued, hey, this agreement that was negotiated on the previous owners were entitled to. It was rejected, they appealed, there was a bit of back and forth. Eventually, though, by 2023, Bloomingdale also sued Namdar, but to condemn the mall property. They argued that they simply were not taking care of the property and they would like to condemn it. Bloomingdale also started to buy the anchor pads. They bought the vacant Burlington, they bought the vacant Sears, they bought the vacant Carson's, basically putting the mall's owners on notice. The mall just kept dying, losing more and more stores. There's literally strip malls across the street filled up with mall stores. This area is doing fine as a retail area. They were really serious about not removing the plants. They've been donated to the Bloomingdale Garden Club, which is cool. This is part of kind of a national trend where cities have been buying their dying shopping malls and saying, okay, the private sector is not going to take care of this. We need to step in if we want to see change happen at these properties. The Spring Hill Mall in West Dundee, similar situation. You're seeing this happen all over the country, like really starting this year. For example, the Charlestown Mall, not that far from here, has been sitting vacant since 2017. They just keep on waiting for a developer willing to deal with the hassle of demolishing a massive mall structure. And there's just simply not enough developers willing to do that. Stratford Square Mall is in a thriving retail area, but at the same time, like, why would a developer want to pay for the upfront cost of demolishing this massive mall structure? It's expensive. And it's just like, okay, we need to take it down. So that's kind of where a lot of cities are with dealing with their dead malls. It's really been a change over the last year. Back in 2021, Bloomingdale actually started the planning process for redeveloping the mall. They made this lovely story map, nice picture of the mayor, a map of the site, as well as just some very basic images for what the site could look like into the future. They're starting the process to replace it. Eventually, Namdar lost their suits for the 1% sales tax rebate, and they basically settled the condemnation lawsuit by letting Bloomingdale buy the mall. And quickly, the village of Bloomingdale owned the mall and gave all the tenants a 90-day notice to leave. The village of Bloomingdale has been operating the mall since then. They manage it. Mall security is literally the police. They also had an amazing medieval fight club in this storefront. I didn't realize medieval fight clubs were a thing, but I guess they are. I don't know where the Chicago Hydras moved, but that's pretty cool. Aesthetically, this is one of my favorite parts of the mall. It feels so cozy and like separate from the rest of the mall, with the plants and these little overlooks over the escalators and the trees. It's such a nice space. Going up these stairs that used to be an escalator.
Bird! Bird! Bird in the mall.
There were literally 0 stores open on the last day, and a week before, there was 1 business. I don't think I've ever seen a mall that was open to the public this dead. Like, even Forest Fair Village, probably one of the most famous instances of a dead mall, had 1 tenant all the way till the end. So, and Kohl's was also still there. But here, literally, there was nothing. Absolutely nothing in the mall. Everyone here was just taking pictures and just trying to reflect on what this place meant to them. It was kind of a cool environment to be in. This is kind of creepy. I don't know why the gate was open for that storefront. The escape room is moving, which is nice to see. A lot of the tenants that were in the mall found new locations just outside and in the area around the mall. Like, the village made a really good effort to try to help stores relocate. Something Western D did not do for Spring Hill Mall, which just gave them a month's notice and said, have fun. So, in my mind, Bloomingdale has done a really good job handling the tenants and this mall closing. Not all malls are dying, obviously, but Stratford was put in a terrible position. Not that long ago, this mall had 6 department store anchors. 6. Which is a lot. Former Taekwondo place, they still had stuff in there. I don't know what they're gonna do. And former puppy store. Apparently a dog was stolen out of here a few years ago. They ended up moving to Yorktown. This mall was just simply built for a different era. I mean, even Macy's, which was one of the first anchor stores to close here, is opening a new small format Macy's across the street. Like, this is a very viable retail area. This Carson's here, I think, appeared to do pretty well until it closed. Carson's closing was a very hard blow for a lot of Chicago area malls. It always felt like they were busier than our Macy's stores, depending on the location, obviously. But they were everywhere, and losing them all overnight was very rough for a lot of malls. Sears was also at every single mall. They're completely gone, basically. They got like a few scattered around the country, none in Chicagoland. Losing all these anchors and these department stores in a very short period of time has left a lot of malls empty as well. It's not realistic to expect them to redevelop just one anchor spot in a couple of years, let alone 5. They started the redevelopment here of the former Macy's, and they brought in Woodman's. Woodman's is great, except there's no mall entrance, rendering it useless to the actual mall. That would leave Kohl's as the last anchor. Bloomingdale did file a condemnation lawsuit against them as well, but apparently they settled it, and Kohl's is just going to remain involved in the redevelopment. They might move to a smaller new location, but the details of that are not solid yet. This Kohl's store, I did walk through there, and it seemed like it was doing really well, so I'd be surprised to see if it closed. On the last day, there were a ton of people here just trying to celebrate the life of the mall. They even staged a funeral, and they catered in food that they brought to the food court. It was a very upbeat atmosphere. Unlike the Sears wing, where the Sears sign is still illuminated up above, then downstairs they brought this big purple thing in to hide the fact that there's a vacant department store under there. The original vision for indoor malls by Victor Gruen said that, a mall would function as like a suburban areas like downtown area. There'd be shops, there'd be restaurants, there'd be offices, apartments, government offices. It wouldn't just be a place to buy stuff. You, of course, would be able to buy stuff, but it would function as like an urban center in suburbs that simply did not have an urban center. That vision went way off course. Oh, there's a dog in the mall. That's fun. What they built here and at most mall developments all around the country were single-use type facilities that could not be easily adapted to serve their communities as their needs changed. And we're really seeing that with a lot of malls now, as department stores collapse and are closing stores left and right over the last few years. The malls that were once anchored by them are starting to close at an increasingly faster rate. Still though, based off this turnout here for like the last day event, this mall meant a lot to a lot of people and served as a very valuable third place here in the suburbs. And I'm afraid we don't have a space like the mall to replace it. The elevator here was broken and out of service, unfortunately. So it wasn't ADA accessible. But look at this turnout. It's quite impressive. And apparently it got busier as the night went on. And I'll put a link in the description to a video showing people marching around the mall like it's a funeral. The ceilings on this place are just breathtaking. Here are the Stratford Squares for lifelong learning. Right after this was filmed, the library took them down and tried to redistribute them back to their original owners. It's a beautiful art installation, and thankfully it was saved. There's Anna's Kitchen, the last tenant that was operating in the mall. They were fairly busy. Apparently their food was really good and affordable, and I really wish I got the chance to try it. Anna's Kitchen is still looking for a new location. They want to remain in the area somehow. I was lucky to be there on the last day they were open. No more security. They just had cops. Also, this restroom hallway stunk. It was so bad on the last day. Don't recommend it. Admittingly, I never got to experience this mall at its peak. I started coming here when Macy's was closing. So, I didn't really get the chance to experience the mall at its peak. But watching it decline for so long, since like 2017 when Macy's closed, it's just so stark. Because back then, this mall was filled up with a lot of small businesses. But it was full. There were lots of people walking around. And it's kind of like, where did everyone go? Architecturally, this is one of the best malls in the Chicagoland area. And it's very sad to lose this as just an architectural statement. So many of our malls are bland, kind of whitewashed. They just don't have much character anymore. Well, this mall is just filled up with character. So, like, look at that view. And then those corners and the ceiling and the trees underneath. And the movement in, like, the hallways. These light fixtures, there's so much detail. Like, I've enjoyed my times coming to this mall, and it's very sad to see it go out like this.
Stratford Square. Sad mannequins with styrofoam.
I should have probably just cut that out. taking a look at the movie theater. This closed back during the middle of the pandemic. It's such an amazing space, or at least the lobby is. I was actually kind of surprised when they announced this was closing. It's just such a nice space. As for the mall, I'm actually hoping Bloomingdale starts tearing it down as soon as they possibly can. It's good to see a village taking such a proactive step to actually just tear it down. And I don't want to see it sit empty for 10 years before the village has to take it down anyways because it's rotting away. This elevator was not working, but it's just a Kone Eco disc, so who cares? Those aren't very, very exciting either.
No more lies, no more strangeness, no more pain. No more lies, no more strangeness, no more pain. It's over. It's over. It's over. It's over.
As I exit the mall for a final time, I'd like to thank you so much for watching this video. It's 32 minutes now, so you've stuck around. That's kind of shocking. There's Kohl's. There's Carson's. They still have their sign up. Sears also had their sign up. Strata, 25 West, both closed a long time ago as well. Thank you so much again for watching this all the way to the end. I do this channel for fun, and I really appreciate all those that stick around to watch, comment, like, subscribe, and dislike all my videos. See y'all next time, whenever that'll be. Thank you.